Hey everyone, welcome back to Sheepers Podcast. I'm your host, Brooke Wright, and today's guest is S.A. Schneider.
Hi,
Hello,
Brooke.
hi.
I'm here.
Thank you.
I'm not in
thank you.
Kansas.
Thank you so much for being a guest today.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate you jumping on with me being a little bit late here.
It's all right. So, what first sparked your love for storytelling?
Story reading.
Oh,
I've read books. I mean, literally, I remember when we moved into my house or parents' house when I was young, as I was walking in, there was a book in the bushes and I pulled it out and it was a Hardy Boys book. And while they were touring the house, I was reading the book and I was 5.5. So I've read all my life. My aunt and uncle had their wedding reception in my parents' house when I was younger. And I got bored with the reception and sat down in the middle of the dance floor and started reading. So started off as a reader, years and years ago.
So, how did your childhood Lego and action figure adventures shape your writing?
It's all imagination. The Legos, my cousin for Christmas one year, my grandmother worked at a Goodwill, the big distribution center. So for a whole year, she collected all the Lego that came through and gave him 2 garbage bags full of Lego when we were younger. So imagine pouring out garbage bags of Lego. And we built everything. And action figures, me and friends, we had Star Wars. That's the big hype of the start of this whole collecting thing we have nowadays. We had all the Star Wars figures. We made up adventures and, it was all imagination. That's how it all started. I continued that with my kids. I didn't get them kits of Lego that had instructions on what to do. I got them a bucket, had Lego in it, build something. and the figures we played, we had Star Wars mixed in with G.I. Joe, mixed in with My Little Pony, all together in fantasy adventures. So the storytelling is just, continuation of my childhood. Cause like Peter Pan, I don't want to grow up.
Yeah, it makes me kind of want to have kids because I like playing with the little cars, the little race car things they used to have. Me and my brother had a lot of those things. Instead of dolls, I asked my mom for the little race cars.
Well, they got even cooler ones now for Hot Wheels. They're not on tracks. It's little sides and they're flexible and you can do all sorts of stuff. My stepson and I, we used to build tracks all through the house and get them to, go all over. It's awesome.
Yeah, me and my brother used to do that too. So, who were your favorite authors growing up?
Well, so F.W. Dixon with Hardy Boys. Read a lot of that when I was younger, but for good or bad, when I was 9 years old, my mother got me a box set for Christmas that had several books in it, and it was Stephen King. So I read Stephen King when I was 9, and I think that probably shaped me a lot. The following year, she got me Tolkien, Lord of the Rings. So I read that the year after I read Stephen King. And then I got Black Stallion, and each year I got a different box set of books. But Stephen King's been one of my favorites my whole life. And I then later when I was a teen, I grew into the Dragonlance series by Weiss and Hickman. Love those books. I've read them multiple times. I've read almost every book in the series. They have new ones that they came out with over the last couple of years, which was new Weiss and Hickman Dragonlance. So I had to get those to read. I should be writing. I think I'm going to read. So that's probably. But more modern times, there's a actual friend now, author that I discovered, Jeff Strand. The books he writes that I like the best are basically like adult Goosebumps. They're horror comedy, and his comedy just clicks with me and makes me laugh. I've got some audiobooks of his and I've listened to them multiple times. So those are not all my favorite authors, but some of the top ones I read.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if Goosebumps was on your list because that was mine, Goosebumps. I love Goosebumps. So.
Well, see, the original Goosebumps were after me. I was a little too old to really get into them. My kids loved them. And I've kind of read some of them nowadays because it's like, well, what did R.L. Stine do that got every kid wanting to read your books, you know?
Yeah.
Plus the fact that he lived in Cleveland or was from Cleveland. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, he's kind of a local author, so I got to check him out a little more.
Yeah. His books weren't too scary, but they definitely made you a little bit scared. So they
And,
wasn't too scary, but
yes, he talks about that in Masterclass. If you looked at any of the Masterclass, he's got a Masterclass. He
okay.
talks about that, you know, for kids, you want that scary, but not too scary. So you can't do, you know,
Yeah.
werewolves eating people, you know, so
Yeah.
instead you have the dummy. And I'll tell you, my kids will tell you, yeah, that dummy will scare the out of you, you
Oh
know?
yeah. Oh
So, but they say that now. They didn't say it that way when they were younger.
yeah. So what made you decide to focus on middle grade fantasy?
That wasn't planned. I have a couple other author friends, Jay Thorne and Zach Bohannon, who they were mentoring me, and I was meeting with them and talking, and I was writing stuff. They were reading it and feedback, and you know, just some coaching, mentoring stuff. And I was really struggling. I nothing seemed to be working and clicking. It didn't seem right. I was trying everything I could, and one of them said, well, why are you writing an adult thriller? And I'm like, well, I don't know. What else do you write? I mean, you know, just that's what you write, isn't it? And they said, because you do all this stuff with kids, and no offense, you kind of have a childlike, you know, personality. You're very into the childlike things. Imagine, why don't you write books for kids? And I
Yeah.
went, well, that makes sense. So I did, and it worked out. It was great, and I love the stories. They come really natural to me. I think they flow really well. It just it all clicked. It made sense.
Yeah. So what inspired the Town Magician like series? Or is it a series or is it a trilogy?
It's a trilogy that's 4 books. Or going to be
Yeah.
4 books. Um, so stupid Harry Potter was the inspiration for it. There, I live by Kent State, and every year there is a Wizarding World festival, and I wanted to set up an author table there, but I at the time I didn't have any books with wizards and magic. It doesn't make sense to set up an author table at a wizarding festival unless you have wizarding type stories. So on a plane trip with my son to Rhode Island, I came up with the idea of here's a short story. I'll just do this short story about this boy who lives in a world with magic and he wants magic. Great. I got this nice short story. Well, if you talk to many authors, it's very, very difficult to stay with, hey, this short story in this world. It's like, well, what about this? And I bet that, and what about this? And you know what? I could suddenly that short story became a book. And as I was writing that book, I thought of a couple other books. And the funny thing is, I'm working on book 3 now, and it would seem like it's the natural epic conclusion to this trilogy.
Mhm.
But there's a story after this that I think is even more important and big, but it's not like movie epic big, but it's
Yeah.
very personal to our hero. So books 3 and 4 ought to be really interesting. But I expanded it, thought of some stuff. I've got 4 books planned with a possibility of 3 more books after that if I feel like it and things go well, and a duology prequel that takes place like 200 years earlier. And I've already got 3 short stories out. I have another short story between book 1 and 2 that, again, as I was writing it, I changed it, and it's becoming a book all on its own, which is why it's not out yet, because it went from a 9,000 word short story to it's up to like a 30,000 word book now.
Oh,
So that's how they go. The world exists. I'm just writing what happens, and sometimes more happens than I think.
So what inspired embracing the magic? Like what's the idea behind embracing the magic?
It's a story of a boy that doesn't fit in, that doesn't feel like he has any friends, that doesn't feel like he belongs in the world, that nobody likes him. He's just kind of a misfit. I can relate to that when I was younger, in some ways. And I know there's a lot of other kids out there that can relate to that. I just don't feel like I'm the popular kid. I don't feel like anybody likes me, you know, that type of thing. And he really, really, really wants something that's denied him. So it's the journey that he goes on to achieve, not even achieve something. He doesn't actually work to get something. It's more about believing in himself and what he is, not what our people think he is I hope the message that comes out without beating kids over the head. So it just naturally came out as a story. Once I knew the world, once I knew the character, it fit. And then book 2, which is coming out in August, Transgression of Magic, it was like, I wonder what happened with Samuel and his father. Now that, you know, book 1's done, what's going on with them? And we have the story for book 2.
Nice. And you said it comes out in August?
Yes. Yeah.
Nice. So can you describe what I'm not going to pronounce this right, but I know you know what I'm talking about. Is it a tat room?
Is it what?
Tat room. Tatroon. I knew I was going to mispronounce it.
That's so. You ever watch old Bugs Bunny cartoons?
Yes.
When you were a kid and you laugh and think they're funny. Now I understand there's a lot of stuff that not as relevant in today's world. They have like a lot of political and World War II references, but you laugh at it as a kid. Then you watch it when you're an adult and you're like, man, this is pretty funny because there is some stuff in there that is not for kids. It's for adults.
Yeah.
I try to have a few Easter eggs in the books for the adults reading it to the kids. Tatroon is very, very close to a certain desert world from another very famous franchise that I absolutely love. So if you know what I'm talking about, then you kind of know. And there's other things in there referencing things in a subtle, sly way that adults would be like, oh, that's funny. I get that.
I kind of want to know. Then you kind of make me want to look it up while we're.
It's very easy. Have you ever heard of the planet Tatooine?
Is that where Marvin the Martian stayed on?
Oh, Brooke. Oh, what? That's Luke's home planet in Star Wars. Tatooine.
Oh man, I haven't watched Star Wars in so long.
You fail.
Watched Star Wars in so long.
That's
like it's been years.
That's my subtle little nod to Star Wars, Tatooine. Because, and you may have heard this, you know, author, storyteller, you've probably heard people say things like, oh, well, Harry Potter just ripped off Star Wars. It's the same story with magic instead of lightsabers. Okay, hold on. They both ripped off the man with 1,000 faces, the monomyth that Joseph Campbell came up with. They're both based on that hero's journey. They didn't steal anything from each other at all. It's a common thread in storytelling that goes back eons. So I admire the storytelling in Star Wars. I admire George Lucas's interweaving of things. I mean, one of the best lines in A New Hope for me when I was 7 was, your father fought in the Clone Wars. That was all we heard about for 30 years. Nobody knew what the heck the Clone Wars were. It was what are the Clone Wars? Nobody mentions it anymore at all, which editors in today's world would go crazy. Oh my gosh, you better describe the Clone Wars because people want to. 30 years went by before we found out what the Clone Wars were. So those are lessons I grew up with and learned. And I try to put in my books these little nods to not only things that adults would understand, but there's hints of stuff in book 1 that you won't even know about till book 4. Because I had thought of all 4 of the stories before I even started on 1. So
wow.
I'm not sure where we all started with that, but there's a long-winded answer for you.
Man, that's a great answer. I can't believe you brought up Star Wars. Like, I haven't watched Star Wars in years.
Oh, my next series coming out. There are some things in that are even more strong nods to some very popular cultural things. So Hopefully the adults that read the books to the kids enjoy those things. I try and put some of that in there. The little Looney Tunes, wink, wink, nudge, nudge for the adults.
Ooh, I'm gonna, even though I'm not a kid, I still want to read it. Like,
I've had several adults tell me it's fun. It's not a long read, so it's fairly quick.
ooh. So Samuel's story is very personal. Was he inspired by anyone?
No, not really. It's just like I said, growing up, I had a great childhood. I don't want it to sound like I was miserable or anything, but I'm a nerd. I'm a big nerd, and in the '80s that didn't go over so well. So I wasn't the popular kid. I didn't fit in. I have some very good close friends that are still my friends. Just went to a concert with one a couple weeks ago. Went and played games with another one last Saturday. So I had a good childhood, a lot of good friends, but our school wasn't very, it was more of a jock school. So in the '80s, if you were a nerd,
Sports.
you were the beat upon. And that's, I guess a little bit from personal experience, but just knowing there are still kids going through that. And, we talk a lot about reflections of seeing yourself on the page. I've been dinged. I've been told I don't describe my characters enough, that I should describe them more. But I did it kind of on purpose. They're a little nebulous because I don't want the kids to say, oh, well, yeah, I can picture this. I want them to say, well, I wonder what he looks like, and get the picture in their head of what they think these characters look like. So I could be wrong. It could be killing my sales. Everybody could be hating it except me. But I don't describe them very much physically because I want that reflection. I want kids to think of them as they want to think of them. And so Samuel is more of a reflection personality wise or situational wise that some kids are in. The one thing that was difficult was his father's a drunk in the book. And that is a rough line, because if you go into detail of his father drinking and getting violent and anything with Samuel, then you're going to get parents jumping down your throat. You're going to get banned. You're going to get tons of 1-star campaigns against you. Oh my gosh. They can't tell about this parent that's a drunk that's, beating on his kid. But there are kids that have to deal with that every day. They live it. Why can't we put in a book something that they can read and go, you mean I'm not the only one? You mean this happens to others? To maybe give them the strength to say, I can get through this, and I can not be the person that, my parent is or whatever. That I think they need that. I think censoring it does not help. Putting a drunk parent beating on a kid, and I didn't do that, but putting that in a book can be damaging and can be done poorly, but it can be done well, and maybe get kids to realize this isn't a good thing. Instead of let's hide it from them so that they grow up thinking, oh, you must be lying. That never happens. My thoughts and opinions. So if you get bombarded with people yelling about that, I apologize.
Oh no. So what, can you share your favorite scene from the book? Like for your from the new book, the newest book.
The newest Transgressions?
Yes.
Well, it's funny you say that. I was just working on the short story between books 1 and 2 today, and there's a good scene in there with Samuel and the bully John. The Transgressions, the book, the ending changed a lot. And I think I ended up with the best ending I could, but I tried to make it very movie-like dramatic, and not a resolution between Samuel and his father, but trying to show his father realizing the damage he's done to his son and realizing he needs to try and make amends for that. But again, I don't spell it out in talking heads with them going, well, Samuel, I realize now that I've been really terrible as a father. Oh, Dad, I appreciate, I didn't do that stupid stuff. but it's a big battle at the end that, once again, if you, in book 1 and book 2, Samuel really has to dig deep and pull out of himself things he didn't think he could do and overcome his own self-doubts to overcome the external challenges that he's facing. And he's assisted in that by his father this time. It was unexpected, and he's not even sure how to really feel about it at the end. So it doesn't end on, oh, everything's better now, because I originally had that, and my editor said, really? After years of abuse, he's going to be like, oh, Dad, it's so good to talk to you now. And I'm like, yeah, that does seem kind of stupid. So that final scene, once again, with Samuel digging deep, is one of my favorites. Though there's a really good scene in there where they fight goblins, and that was fun because in the first book they fought dire wolves, and those, you know, the battle scenes are just fun. I imagine the action figures. I need Samuel and Rory action figures.
Kind of like the small soldiers action figures.
Yes, something. Yes.
So, do you plan on writing more short stories in the Town Musician universe?
Yes, if I could keep them short. I have a second short story between book 1 and 2. So in book 1, there's an evil magician, and he fights other town magicians and takes their amulet, which is what is their symbol, but it helps give them enhances their magical power. He takes them. Well, after he gets defeated at the end of book 1, Samuel and Rory go back to the towns to deliver all the amulets. Again, well, what happened to all those amulets? You know, it's that question. What happened? Well, of course, you can't just say, well, they drove around the town and delivered them. That's boring. Came up with a story that went with it. Well, that story grew and then changed. And it's the one that should be out as a short story, but is becoming its own book. And instead of them just fighting this creature in it, suddenly this creature is going after the evil wizard Morsel. He gets loose. Samuel catches up to him, and instead of capturing him and turning him in, he helps him because of what's going on. So the enemy from book 1, they become not friends, but Samuel helps him in this short story. And there's a whole reason why. And that's what I'm working on right now. So things change.
Ooh, I'm interested in this. Is this going to be out on Kindle too?
Yes, I'm really pushing to get it out. I would really like to get it done and out very shortly after book 2 comes out. And, you know, have it up on the website and, you know, put it out everywhere, obviously. And I'm putting things in audiobook. I know this is a controversy, but I'm using digital voices because I can. They sound good. I can afford it. That's a big thing. And I think most of the kids who listen are so already used to AI or getting used to AI that listening to a digital voice won't faze them at all. So, you know, yeah, I would love to pay a narrator to read my books, but I haven't even sold close to enough books to pay for that. So the choice is not to do audiobooks or to use AI voices and get audiobooks out for people that want to listen to them. So, you know, I went with the route that there are people that want those audiobooks and they're okay with listening to these voices. Now, if I sell a ton of these, so everybody listening that wants to go get the books of the audiobook, support it. And I will gladly, on my next book, next series, get a narrator. I've had a book with a story that there were narrators on it. So, you know, I'm not like opposed to it at all. It honestly is a financial thing, you know, and also I'd rather get it out than not.
Yeah, that's true. These stories kind of remind me. I don't know if you ever seen Troll Hunters, but it's on Netflix, and it's Troll Hunters. I love that show. Even though it's a kid's show, I do not care. I love it. It kind of reminds me of Troll Hunters, kind of, sort of.
Yes, I can see that. I didn't think about that, but yes, I know my stepson used to watch Troll Hunters a lot. The one my kids used to watch was Ben 10. Ben 10 is probably a little bit of an inspiration for me too, because I watched a lot of Ben 10.
So So, can you tell us a little bit about what your writing process is like? Like, do you do what I'm doing to write my first horror book? I'm writing my first horror book. Do you do what I do and like have like a web or anything like that? Like, how's your writing process?
So first of all, I love horror. Tell me about your horror book real quick.
Well, I haven't written it yet,
Okay.
but I'm
Well,
writing it.
you got to hit me up when you're done. I love horror. So
Okay.
I want to hear about this. Read it. You know, that's a hard thing because I've got a family, I've got a job. You know, like I said, I'm not selling enough books to be a full-time independent author yet, working on that. So I got a job. So there are days, you know, I may not be able to write. I've got a lawn to mow. I've got animals to take care of. I've got other things going on, responsibilities. So the process is, oh, hey, I really feel like writing and I got some time. Let's sit down and write some, which
Yeah.
arguably may not be the best method, may not produce the best books. I understand that, but it's what I got. When I do write, I've got a nice setup. I've got a dual screen. I've got a nice split keyboard, comfy chair, you know, and I can sit back and write. I'm really wanting to try and get the transcription thing going where I can just talk into a microphone and, you know, it turns into words, because I think what would come out would be more flowing and more natural. But I think my writing's getting better regardless. So the process is, hey, I got time. Let's write.
So, do you illustrate your own books or do you collaborate with artists?
So the books I've written, I don't really have illustrations in them except for the cover. Oh. And there's the book 2 cover right there. And I love to brag. You know, we were talking about narrators. Well, my covers are done by a real person. His name is Tom Zoller. He lives in Cleveland, a little ways away from me. And his claim to fame, he does a lot of things of his own. He's got some really great trade paperbacks and stories out there. Excuse me, some comics. I've got multiple of his books. I really love them. They're great, casual, funny, great art. You know, obviously, I love his art. But he was also involved with the My Little Pony reboot from like 10 years ago. So if you pick up a My Little Pony trade paperback and look inside, you'll see Tom Zoller, Zahler, right in there. That's the guy that did my covers. Nice. So I love that. He also, my next series that I'm working on, he did the logo for it. It's the Oddish Questers, and it's got in the O, it's got a little Bigfoot shadow, and in the Q, it's got a ghost shadow. So it's a cryptid investigation group, a group of siblings that do cryptid investigations. Think of it as X-Files meets Supernatural meets Scooby-Doo. So that's what those will be. And I try and use him when it fits. I don't know if I'm going to use him for the covers on those books because the feel of the books is different. So I don't know what I'm doing for those covers yet. And I do have in that series, I do have a picture book I worked on. And again, it came down to the amount of money to pay somebody would be so outrageous. I'd never get the picture book done. So I did use some AI art on that, but I think it came out well. And that's part of that series. I would love to sell enough to support hiring an artist for the next part, but I know how much it costs, and I'm not saying they're not worth it at all. It's just, you know, get the book out or never get the book out.
Nice. So will Samuel and Clarice return in the sequel?
For Embrace or Transgressions, they're in it. Yes, they're the main characters. Samuel and Rory are the main characters. Clarice shows up. She may be showing up a little bit more for various reasons. And then Toby, the Grand Wizard, he's in book 2, but not so much in book 3. And if you read book 2, you'll see why. Book 3 is a direct continuation of book 2. And things that happened to Toby in book 1 start coming to light in book 3 about what was going on in book 1 with him. And Kat is back.
Nice. So will we meet other town musicians from different villages?
Yes. And there is in in the beginning of book 1, there's the evil wizard Morzel is fighting a magician, and you don't really know who it is. Well, that town magician is in this short story that's turning into a book that I'm working on right now. He's in there. I actually named him Tom after the artist. Tom Zoller. I told him I got a character about him. And there are some other ones mentioned. We meet the town council in book 2, which has some of the most powerful magicians. And they have slightly different powers. And I try in every book, throw in new characters. That was one of the things I remember I heard about movie sequels and seasons of TV shows, that you should throw in new characters every movie or every season of a TV show, because it mixes it up, keeps it interesting. Yeah. So I try and get a few new characters every time, not just one-off, something that'll be recurring. So you will see some of the same characters coming back for various reasons.
Ooh, so what new magical creatures or settings can we look forward to?
Oh man. So book 2, we've got trolls, which weren't in book 1. There's goblins attacking a town, which is something that's talked about in book 1, where years ago creatures used to attack the villages and soldiers protected. And then a young apprentice named Zardonis discovered magic and released it into the world, and people were able to channel magic, and the magicians started getting stronger and they overshadowed the soldiers. That's why in the town magician world, there really aren't any soldiers, but there's a lot of town magicians protecting towns, but there's not that many creatures for them to protect, which is why they do the performances. Well, in book 2, we get a town that's being attacked by a goblin, and there's still a question kind of why. Book 3, which, it says a direct sequel, we travel to some faraway mountains on a quest and run into some new creatures, new characters, and already know that at least one of those new characters is going to play a big part in book 4 too. And it's elves. I'll just tell you, it's going to be elves. And in book 1, they fought dire wolves, like I mentioned. Book 2's got goblins and trolls. So again, trying to mix it up a little bit without repeating the same things over and over.
Yeah, hopefully you have fairies next time and witches. Well, if
you like the fairies, witches, I'm not going to say anymore. Witches play a part, but you don't know that yet. So there's a hint of things to come for books 3 and 4.
Okay.
And fairies are involved with the new series, Oddish Questers, that I'm working on.
Ooh. Okay, my last and final question before I let you go is, where can my listeners and your readers, new readers, find your books?
Everything's at my website, sa-schneider at schneider.com. It's all there. It's all linked into the stores, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Kobo, and some of them, like the short stories, which are free. I have links into a book funnel to download and get, though you can still get them on Amazon and things like that. So trying to make them available everywhere. I'm working on the website and updating it, because as I get book 2 out, get it into the distribution, get the audiobooks done. I got new covers and slightly revamped short stories that I re-put out. So if things are in flux, I apologize, but everything's at the website, including plenty of free short stories. I even have Oddish Questers started up there. I have Halloween and Christmas stories up there with the different characters. I try and put out a new Halloween and Christmas story every year.
Ooh, I'm going to go to your website.
Thank you. I hope you do.
I want to thank you so much for being a guest today and telling us about your books.
I appreciate it. And it's been fun. Thank you. Again, I apologize for being late, and I appreciate you taking me on a little bit late here.
You're all right. Thank you so much. You have a great day.
You too, Brooke. Thank you.
Hey everyone, I want to thank you all so much for listening to my interview with S.A. Schneider. Definitely check out his books. I know I will be. I know I say that for every author, but they all have good stories. So yeah, definitely check it out, because this reminds me of Troll Hunters, and I love Troll Hunters. But check it out. See you next time for the next interview at 10. Bye.